thank you, General Gainey, for joining me at Defense News here at the Pentagon. The internet, Reddit, etc., is awash in videos of Russians and Ukrainian forces dropping shells and grenades on each other from small commercial drones. So, what are U.S. forces doing to counter threats like this? How are you thinking about getting after this problem? And it's not just in Russia and Ukraine. You're seeing in the CENTCOM AOR as well. So, if you could talk just a little bit about the threat picture and how that is causing you to think about.
Yes. First of all, Jen, thanks for the opportunity to be able to highlight what we as DoD are doing against the UAS problem from a counter UAS perspective. DoD made a decision a few years ago to make the Army the executive agent to essentially frame this problem set and have a service lead and direct the effort with all of these services. So in that process, we essentially focused on 3 areas: developing a joint material solution, developing joint training and joint doctrine. We wanted to ensure that not just going after the material solution, but putting a framework around the material solution with training and doctrine, so you had a holistic capability when fielding to the warfighter. So specifically, what are we doing? So what we decided earlier is that having a system layered approach into a common C2 is the best method to get after this type of threat. There is no one capability that will defeat the range of threats that you will see with these unmanned systems out there, whether they're small quadcopters or large one-way attacks. So implementing a layered approach in a common C2 is really how we decided to get after this problem set and to build off of that.
So what have you learned specifically from the Russian invasion of Ukraine about the battlefield use of drones? Has the capacity exceeded your expectations here? I mean, this is nothing really new. You've seen this for a long time in other AORs, other theaters. But it seems that the proliferation is a bit staggering. We've seen the Army Chief of Staff talk about how there's this need for counter UAS, I think, more than we've heard in the past, just because of how much we're seeing it in.
Yeah, I believe what we've seen is it's a validation of the threat is real, the threat is evolving, and we as DoD are taking this seriously. And so what we're seeing in Ukraine really is a validation of what we're seeing inside of the CENTCOM AOR and our methodology of how to get after this threat, which, like I highlighted earlier, is the layered approach integrated in a common C2. And that's the best way to get after this threat. So globally, we're seeing, like I highlighted, that the threat continues to grow, and you'll see a range of employment of that threat from large to small amounts, depending on where you are and what AOR.
Well, let's talk about large amounts. The U.S. Army is starting to evaluate how to deploy their own swarms, for instance. We've seen that recently. But are drone swarms overhyped at this point? What's the feeling of those on the ground?
I wouldn't say overhyped. I would believe that anytime you can saturate an operator with a capability is something you have to take seriously. And we're taking counter swarm seriously. In one of our recent demonstrations, we demonstrated the capability of high power microwave, and really how to get after a swarm with high power microwave. And so that is one of the technology areas we're looking at. And also we're looking at other ways from a operator overload perspective to be able to get after this threat and then provide the operator the tools to be able to defeat this threat.
Let's talk a little bit about training. How will individual soldiers be able to contend with or defeat drones? What are the size, weight, and power hurdles for them? How are you training individual soldiers to counter drones right now?
First of all, thank you for bringing that up, because so often we focus on the material solution, and really the material solution is only part of the overarching solution. So if you look at, just as you look at integrated air and missile defense, it's more than just the material solution to this part. It's the training aspect of it, but it's also more than just the defensive aspect of it. It's also the attack ops, left of launch capability, and the passive capability. So from a soldier's perspective, we want to teach them all of that and above. So every soldier needs to have that baseline knowledge of how to employ counter-UAS capability, how to do passive measures, and how to understand what the threat can do and see from their perspective and what you can do to prepare yourself. So what we've done is, I highlighted earlier, our first actual demo was focused on dismount handheld type capability, and it was looking at where can we in DoD provide more capability to the individual soldier on the ground, because the way drones are being employed, I mean, they essentially can be everywhere, and they're used everywhere because they're cheap. Anybody can use them, and they're really easy to learn. Mm-hmm. So providing the individual soldier a capability, which we're doing now, to be able to defeat this threat is critical. But not only that, providing them the training. So what we've done is we've done a lot of work in developing joint knowledge online modules, JKO modules. We've developed 4 of those, and we have a 5th one on the way, and those are focused on operator understanding, overall orientation to the problems and orientation to the systems, with an intent of every soldier eventually making that a mandatory class in the future. But more importantly, we've also stood up the Joint Counter-UAS Academy that's currently at Yuma, but will move to Fort Sill, Oklahoma, with the Air Defense School and the Fire Schoolhouse, and really consolidate, therefore, a joint school where all the services will be able to provide. And they will provide an operator and a planner's course to give the warfighter that ability to not only execute the system, but also to plan it out, which we haven't had in the past.
Okay, so essentially every soldier that comes into the Army could be able to pick up a counter drone capability, a handheld type drone capability, and take out a drone if they saw it.
Absolutely, and that's our intent. And what we have to do, I think what's incumbent on us, as I get out there and get a chance to talk to the soldiers who are manning the systems globally, is what can we do to help you if you're not an air defense soldier that traditionally does air and missile defense. We got to help them, from a user interface perspective, make it easier on the soldier to operate these different type of systems, and then provide them the training to be able to employ these systems properly.